Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the RIPE series. This is my second podcast, and we've done a few so far where we have conversations with senior figures, all nice people to add, from industries that we support. Today, we are speaking to someone from the management consultancy space. As a quick intro of myself, my name is Dietrich Yap. I'm an associate director based in Gravitas' Singapore office. Fortunately based in Asia, closer to 10 years, living and working in Hong Kong and over the last year in Singapore. As a reminder, the theme of these podcasts is a bit of a play on letters and words, and they're called the RIPE sessions, as they cover our core questions are questions based on our core values at Gravitas, which are respect, integrity, passion, and excellence, hence RIPE. Okay, these are our core values, but obviously they have different meanings for different companies and people, and we're interested in finding out what they mean to other people, if anything at all, and if they're still relevant to others today. Today, I am very fortunate to be speaking to another very impressive individual. Today, I'm speaking to Mr. James Arnett, who's based in Hong Kong and works for the management consultancy group Capco. Hi, James.
Good morning, Dietrich.
Morning, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, I hope you don't mind. Would you mind giving us, give me a quick, brief intro about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. James Arnett. I've been with Capco 10 years now, and I've been in the industry, financial services and technology for over 20 years. I've spent the last 10 years working with some of the leading investment banks and wealth managers around the world, primarily in London, New York, and Zurich. I've most recently run our capital markets business and one of our global client relationships. And I took over our Asia Pacific business at the beginning of 2021, and I'm now based in Hong Kong.
Okay, before I start the questions on the RIPE, on my review, I see you're a big believer and advocate of equal opportunity, inclusion in business, and also education. Obviously, all important topics, but I want to discuss one that you kind of put down, education. I noticed that you help establish partnerships like organizations like Room to Read in 2015. I didn't really know much about it until I saw it, but I thought it'd be quite good if you can tell us a bit more about that sort of organization that you're involved with.
No, definitely, thank you. So I probably have a view and an ethos. Some of my core personal values around giving back, and there's got to be more than life. Than I get bored easily. I'm in consulting because I like fast pace and change and transformation. But I think it's important to have more meaning than just technology transformation, finance transformation. And globally, I'm lucky enough to be one of our global sponsors, along with a lady called Stacey Krukel, who's our CMO, to be the co-sponsor for CSR globally. And over probably the last 7 or 8 years, we've established 2 core relationships as Capco. One with Room to Read, who is an organization that's been around for about 22, 23 years, about similar time as Capco actually, driving equality in education and literacy for everyone, primarily initially in Asia and Africa, but it's now spread to places like the Middle East and Jordan and Syria, and also into South America. The core purpose there, so Capco has a view on CSR around financial inclusion, because we're a financial services consultancy, and we work with Bankers Without Borders around that for impact consulting, but also Room to Read. And it's very important, I think, is it something like 1-to-3 ratio of female girls to boys get educated in the developing world, which is quite a stark number. And then that gets worse when the girls get 11 and either have to go to work or get into arranged marriages, which is, as a father of 3 and 2 of them are daughters, right? It's quite scary stats.
Yeah.
And I think I have a view around sustainability. Right? It's not a modern trend word. It's more around you can't just write a check and forget about it. It's got to change. You've got to fundamentally change a culture, a town, a village, and how people think and how generations think. And education helps with that. Like educating a girl when they're from the age of 2 or 3 all the way to, and keeping them in education till they're 18 or 21 will change a generation. There's interesting stats. A lot of the girls that go through the programs actually end up working back in the villages or towns that they grew up in, but they end up working back as teachers or doctors, which changes the next generation. So sustainable change is really important for me personally, and part of what we do as an organization. We find, as Capco, we find a large proportion of our consultants, both from hiring and working, with yourself, Gravitas, and others, all the way through to as they grow in the business, they want more out of a job and a career than just doing their day job in a bank or a large insurer or a multinational. They want to do, pro bono work, what we class as impact consulting. And I think we're quite proud of it. We do that. We've been with Room to Read for 8 years as an organisation. I think I've worked with them for over 10, 15 years. And then Bankers Without Borders, we've been working with them on projects probably the last 5 or 6 years globally. So it's actually it's now, one of the nice things, it's actually very competitive to actually get on an impact consulting project within Capco as a part of your community. And people have to interview to get on the projects. And they do this on top of their day job to their client. So
that's probably really fulfilling in partnering with these groups. Fantastic. Thanks a lot for sharing about that. What I will do is I'll jump into the right questions, if that's okay. Put you under the grill a little bit. But what I'll do is I'll start with integrity, if that's okay. Integrity for me is one of the big words. What does integrity mean to you?
So for me, I think integrity starts at home and with yourself. And I think as an individual, in your family space, with your friends, in your workplace, and then as a leader, and I think in the culture that you build, I think my view is you lead from the front, and it's the example you set and who you are. And I also believe in, you make the business you want to make it. You make it the type of who you are and how you behave comes across on with everyone else. I also think we're in a people industry in consulting. If you build trust, if you act in the right way, you build client relationships, right? There's more, they trust you to do things that are complex, that are high risk, a high value to them. And I think it's about that, building that trust and relationship. And like, as I said, it starts, my view is it starts at home, but it also goes into your workplace. And it's a deep part of who you should be you are as an individual.
Yeah.
And I think I think part of that, we have a saying at Capco, be yourself at work. And I think it's, if you can be yourself at work and be true to yourself, right, you have a greater integrity in terms of how you act every day and how you act with people around you as well.
Yeah, no, it falls on nice to the next question, I guess. Talking about Capco being a leader in consultancy, and then you've got that partnership service sort of like industry mentality, and there's obviously a specific client relationship dynamic that you have. So you must continually demonstrate this level of integrity. You obviously oversee a lot of people, but how do you measure? How do you maintain that integrity within your in your workforce?
I think somebody once told me about 5 or 6 years ago. I said the difference is, as you become more senior, everyone looks at you as you walk across the room. Everybody, the analogy of, say, a football manager or a president or prime minister, they analyze every movement, every action, every item. And I think as you become into more senior leadership roles, it's more important to be aware of who you are and how you act and how you behave and how you're perceived. Okay. How you're perceived by different parts of the team, different parts of your organization. In terms of people, having worked all over the world and now living and working in Asia, just to look at the different cultures, different backgrounds, to the diversity of the workforce, to make sure that you take everybody in and take everybody's point of view. I think it's hugely important. I think it's hugely important the culture that you create, and that, you know, I think we've created something in the 10 years I've been in the firm that's quite special and different from our competition, is somewhere where you want to go to work, right? It's somewhere where you want to be happy at work and you can be yourself at work, rather than it's a job. I think I had roles early in my career where it felt like a job, and yeah, and I observed people in some of my first roles in the industry where they were basically watching, you know, how many hours do I have to work? When can I clock in and out for lunch? When can I leave every day? If I've done my hours in the week to leave on a Friday. And I always have the view of that's not a place you want to work, right? That's not that concept. And I think, you know, I observed my father work until he's 65, and he says he's not been happy in the last 15, 20 years of his career. I can't imagine ever being in that space. It's a long part of your life. So how can you do something where you get up every morning and you're motivated, right? And I have a true belief that if you're not happy, change it. And if you do what you enjoy, do what makes you happy, and you'll be more successful in it as well, and you'll be happier in your overall life, never mind in your workplace.
Yeah.
So, and if that means people moving on and going and do something different, that's fine. I'm totally fine with that. Going back to the CSR point,
Okay.
I've actually, you know, quote, lost good consultants over the year to go and work in the pro bono NGO world because of the CSR work they've done at Capco.
They enjoyed it that much that they moved
Because
over.
they've gone and followed their dreams, right? Which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess what you said in the last point kind of leads on quite nicely to the passion part. And I think passion, it's another big word, and it conjures up like images of someone doing something consistently that they enjoy until they're really good and great at it. And you mentioned it before. You've been at Capco for 10 years. You're obviously good at what you do. So how have you remained sort of like passionate during this time?
Good question. It's interesting because when I was growing up, my older brother wanted to be a pilot. That's all he wanted to do, and he's a pilot. He's been a pilot in the Air Force for 28 years. I had no idea. I used to kick a football and wanted to be a footballer, but never really took it that serious, and never trained to the level that my 12-year-old daughter swims at this stage. Right? I never trained at that kind of intensity. I think it was interesting because I probably didn't have a clear direction of where I wanted to do, what I wanted to do, or where I wanted to go. But my view was, I like change. I like changing things, and I like growing businesses at fast pace. I like leading people. I like building successful teams. And I think I've had the opportunity, you know, through the growth we've seen in Capco, going from 600 to 6,000 in the 10 years I've been in the firm. I've changed and evolved myself. I've changed and evolved the type of who I am, the types of roles I've done. You know, I built our FRC practice and our cap markets business, but then I lived in Dublin, I lived in New York, and now I'm in Hong Kong. So I think there's a view of, you find an organization where you're happy, you can create opportunity for yourself. And I think, you know, a lot of my personal friends have always said, why don't you go work for yourself? Why don't you go back, you know, which I did in my 20s. Why don't you go do something of that nature? But if you work in a space that you're allowed to push boundaries, you're allowed to be given space, you're allowed to be creative around it, right? It fosters a level of belonging. It fosters a level of trust, you know, with the organization. And if you have the right support from the leadership and your peers, you know, if you're in an environment that I call it a safe place to fail. And if you're in a safe place to fail, you'll push things and you'll be more creative and you'll do different things. And that's part of why, you know, I think our business has been successful, that we allow people the space to go and do something a little bit different and think outside the box, and not sit in a line and go, you must do this and you will do this for the next, you know, 2 years. So I think that's part of it, and I think that's part of the passion, right? I need to evolve as an individual. I need to grow, but I'm allowed to do it.
Yeah. No.
And I think the organizations are dynamic enough to do that. So
I know that Capco's growing in Asia. and excellence as well is important, and developing the brand. Are there any like specifics or strategies, you know, that you're looking to implement in Capco Asia to develop the brand into an excellent brand?
Great question. So my view is, you know, somebody said when clients give you the feedback that you've come second out of say 4 or 5, right? It's like nice, but you know, it's coming second in consulting means you're still lost. But I think for me, there's a view of our brand, going back to the integrity point. I said to the team when I took over, the first thing we're going to do is operational excellence is number 1 on our business. Okay. Number 2 is, and aligned with that is our people position and how our people are. Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Are they feeling belonging to the business? Because that's what's powerful about the brand in other markets, right? I think I then look at it and go, all right, so what is our brand? What's the direction of the brand? So massive investment going across Asia at the minute. You know, we've doubled our team in Hong Kong in 9 months, tripled it in Malaysia in 9 months. There's senior hires into Hong Kong and Singapore now and over the next 3 to 6 months. So the investment's there. But the view is our brand position and the quality of what we're doing and what's going out the door will be as good as anywhere in the world. And there will be no difference of what it is. And my expectation is, you know, Capco is as good as our competition anywhere in the world, and that's how we've grown, you know, tenfold. I think the difference is our people are different and our culture is different.
Okay.
You know, there's nothing different. So I think it's important. Excellence is important. It comes in different ways, but it comes in a way that suits our organization. So.
Okay. So there's a lot of movement, a lot of hiring, which is great. Always good when things are growing. So when you yourself, let's say, look for consultants, what areas of excellence would you be looking for in the people you hire? There's obviously a hidden recruitment question in there as well. But yeah, what do you look for?
I look for either, my view is either a consultant needs to be content rich, either through a business line domain or a capability, right? Whether it's digital tech or consulting or risk and reg or whatever, and then across, you know, markets, insurance, banking, etc. I think the content is important and the passion for one of that content rich. I think more than ever in this market, you have to have a level of a good level of content in yourself. I look for people that are hungry, right? I think to be a successful consultant, you need to be highly self-motivated in yourself. I think it's a business. If you want to be, if you want to move to partner in a consultancy, any consultancy, you need to be highly motivated, highly driven, and you need to have a want to constantly learn. Over 20 years, thank you for that, and showing my age. But I think you've got to have the appetite to constantly learn. You can't plateau because the world we live in and the industry we work in financial services changes all the time. So you've got to evolve with it. It's the idea of you will get. I think we used to say there's an idea you have to eat yourself before you get eaten in consultancy, because if you don't evolve, you'll be out of date.
Sure.
And I think that's important. I think some of the basics though. So respect is hugely important, and I think that comes down on a really basic level. Time management is hugely important, right? Professionalism at the right time, in terms of whether, like I said, whether you're wearing a shirt or a t-shirt depends on what you're doing that day, right? Where I think, but respect of time management of when you meet somebody, how you perform, are you prepped for that meeting? I say to don't go to a meeting if you're not prepped, because you're not respecting that individual's time, whether that's a peer in our organization or a client. You should take everything. One of the worst traits of consulting in 20 years is they'll do all the prep, they'll go to the meeting, we have a great meeting, and they'll never follow up with the client. It's the idea of this whole cycle of it. So respect whoever you spend the time with, and I think that's it's a big ethos of who we are and where you go. But I think, for me, excellence is somebody who wants to self-improve, and somebody also looks after both their mental, physical, both in life, their personal life, and in their professional life.
Okay. So you've got good people, you know what to look for. Obviously, you understand there's constant change and transformation going on at the moment. Obviously, you need the projects for these people to work in, and obviously the completion of these projects. What would you say is the difference between completing a good project and an excellent project, except for the money? Fine, but what's the difference there for you?
So to me, it's about the customer satisfaction. So, and whether that is the client as in a bank, institution, or insurer, right? Or is that an end client as a customer on the street? So for me, what is the value you've actually delivered? It's not about just, I completed my project, I get paid, I go home, fine. That's like base position. But what does customer satisfaction really look like? Have you changed the app rating from 1, 2 to 4 or 5 of a mobile app that the team have built? Have you realized and retrained a workforce, right? So they're reskilled. Most of our clients, most of their workforce aren't changing anytime soon. Their attrition is sort of 10 to 20%, but they need to reskill them. So can you help change the culture of an organization? Can you reskill a workforce? And you see that that the invigoration and the motivation in the client that you're working. Can you do a level of transformation that makes a fundamental change to the way that client goes to market? Right. Yes, there's a revenues numbers against it for the clients, but there's also a customer centricity, customer satisfaction, customer acquisition, customer retention, hugely important for all our clients. What is the impact and what is the value? I think a lot of people forget about what the value is. I said a client many years ago said to me, projects never end here. Our programs never end here. So we start something, we come up with a 3 to 5 year plan, and after 2 years, people move on, and then we go in a different direction. I think more than ever with our clients now, they're a lot smarter, and the world's smarter and evolved. But what is value? How do you measure value? To the client, to the end customer, and to Capco. I also have a view internally. What does one of the things I've done in the last 10 months is I've closed projects, right? I've walked away from clients and said this is not the right thing for us in this region and the direction we're going in, because there's also got to be value for Capco as a brand, right? As well as there's the financial side of it, but is it the right type of work for us? Is it the right type of work for our people? There's lots of companies out there will do the work, but what work do you want to do as an organization that is right for your culture, your beliefs, your values, your integrity? And I think that's important as well. I think as a consultancy, it's good to know when to say no.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. You've spoken about respect quite a lot from what you said before. Obviously, respect for your clients, there's internal respect for your peers. I know you're obviously influential in your position where you are now, but if I were to ask you, it'd be great to know which one person you respect in your life, and it doesn't have to be work, it could be personal. And what does that person do to earn your respect?
Wow, that's a good question.
That's a huge one. It's quite wide.
To be honest, it's my partner, because she brings me balance in life, and with what's truly important to me and the family. And when the balance between the kids and her and I, and life and travel and COVID and work and career pressures and stress and everything else that's going on, there's a level of calmness and a level of sense, right, of what's important in life. And I think I think that's just a different level, right? I think that to me gives me a different level of respect to different types of things, right? In terms of what's the most important decision for me as an individual, for us as a family. I think that's just brings a different dynamic to it. So
Okay.
in terms of work, to be honest, I've worked with some amazing people over the years. Hugely respect the founder of Room to Read, John Wood, the current CEO, Geetha Morali, for what they're doing, right? And I think the journeys that they're going on and the value and what they actually give to the world in their organizations. And I think, to be honest, there's too many to name, but the people I've worked with in finance and consulting over 20 years, right? There's been some great leaders. So.
Okay, great answer. Great answer. We're coming to the end of the interview now, but I just want to quickly turn the tables. And if we've got 4 core values. If I can ask you what you think Capco's top core values are, what would you say?
Well, we've got values, but I'll touch on the thing that sits with me most is be yourself at work, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that as a cultural impact, right, and who we are and the culture that we've created in the organization is the thing that stands out the most. But integrity and respect, right, for me, we talked about it today, I think is hugely important across our workforce and across our business. I think, we touch on commitment and knowledge. I put it as a slightly different way. I think, be passionate. For me, commitment means be passionate about what you truly believe in, and who you are. I think knowledge is the view that to add value both to our business and to our clients, you have to have deep content in whatever direction. And then I think there's a part around, we talked about excellence, but that should be in everything you do, right? That shouldn't just be about work. It's about who you are and what you want to be and the direction you want to be in life. So,
okay, brilliant. James, that's it. We've come to the end of the podcast. Thanks a lot for making time. I know you're very, very busy.
No, my absolute pleasure.
No worries.
Thank you very much.
And that's it, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Dietrich Yap, and we'll be back with another installment of the Right interviews very soon. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, James.
Thank you.